Okay, so let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're just stuck with the brain you were born with? Well, today we're going to dig into a really revolutionary idea, that you are not just a passenger in your own mind, but you're actually its architect. We're diving deep into the science of how your everyday habits can literally, physically, rebuild and renew your brain.
So, that's the big question, right? Can your daily habits really rebuild your brain? For the longest time, science would have told you, nope, not a chance. But some really groundbreaking research has completely flipped that idea on its head. The answer now is a huge yes, and in this explainer, we're going to show you exactly how that works.
To get how we can do this, first we need to look at the powerful machinery our brains already have built in. Think of it like a renewal system, this incredible capacity for self-repair and growth that's humming along inside you right this second. At the very heart of this system is a process with a bit of a complicated name, adult hippocampal neurogenesis, or just AHN. Now, for decades, the central belief in neuroscience was that we're born with all the brain cells we're ever going to get. Well, AHN just shatters that old idea. It means that even as adults, our brains are constantly creating brand new neurons, specifically in the hippocampus, which is basically mission control for our learning and memory.
But a new neuron doesn't just pop into existence, it's more like an epic journey. It has to go through 5 really distinct stages. It starts with proliferation, where new cells are basically born from a pool of stem cells. Then it has to differentiate, decide it's going to be a neuron. After that, it has to migrate to the right spot in the brain, fight for survival in a pretty tough neighborhood, and finally achieve synaptic integration, which is where it successfully plugs itself into the network and becomes a real functioning part of your mind.
So if our brain is the garden and these new neurons are the seeds, well, what makes them grow? As it turns out, there's this one key molecule that acts just like fertilizer for your brain.
Let me introduce you to BDNF. It stands for Brain-Derived Neurotrophic Factor. Yeah, I know, the name is a lot, but what it does is actually pretty simple and incredibly powerful. This is the miracle grow for your brain. BDNF is a protein that keeps your existing neurons healthy, and this is the crucial part. It encourages the growth and survival of those brand new ones we were just talking about. It's absolutely essential for that whole 5-stage journey.
And this is where it gets really important for our daily lives. Look at the connection between BDNF and mental health. This research shows that lower levels of this exact protein are consistently found in people with major depression. So this tells us that boosting our brain's miracle grow isn't just some abstract thing for better memory, it's fundamental to our emotional well-being.
Okay, so this brings us to the most important question of all. If this BDNF stuff is so vital, is there anything we can actually do to get more of it? And the answer is a definitive yes. In fact, scientists have developed a model that shows exactly how our actions can directly boost this brain-building protein. All right, so here's the big picture. On the left, you see environmental enrichment, which is really just a scientific way of saying the things we do and experience every day. That stuff directly influences molecular things inside us, like BDNF, which then leads to this awesome state of continuous healthy brain renewal. Bottom line, what you do literally changes your brain's biology. And we can get even more specific. Let's trace the path on this diagram. See how environmental enrichment at the top leads straight to an increase in growth factors, and BDNF is a huge player there? This, in turn, supports all 5 of those neurogenesis phases we talked about, and the end result is a more resilient, more sustainable hippocampus. It's a really clear cause and effect chain. So we're growing new neurons, which is amazing, but how do they actually make the whole network smarter and stronger? What is going on at those tiny little connection points between them? Well, the answer is this remarkable process called synaptic plasticity. Just think of it like your brain is constantly optimizing its own wiring, kind of like a super smart electrician. On one hand, you've got long-term potentiation, or LTP. This is that famous saying, neurons that fire together, wire together. The more 2 neurons communicate, the stronger and faster that connection gets. But on the other side, you have long-term depression, LTD, the use it or lose it principle. If a connection isn't used, it gets weaker and eventually fades. This whole dynamic process is literally how you learn and how memories get carved into your brain. And this isn't just some abstract concept. I mean, look at this. This is an actual electron micrograph image. You are literally looking at the neurotransmitter serotonin being released at a synapse. See those tiny little bubbles? That's how one neuron talks to another. It's a real, physical thing that our habits are influencing every single day. Just incredible. So this brings us to what I think is the most empowering part of this whole story.
We know we can influence this entire process. So how do we actually do it? How can we enrich our environment to crank up that BDNF and build ourselves a better brain?
Well, the research points to a really clear three-pronged approach, which you can see right here in this diagram. The three pillars we can build our daily habits around are physical activity, cognitive stimulation, and mindfulness. Let's break down each one.
First up, physical activity. And the best news here is that you do not need to be a marathon runner. Seriously, studies show that even low-intensity stuff, like just taking a daily walk, gets more blood flowing to the brain and is directly linked to a healthier hippocampus. It's one of the most reliable ways to boost your production of that crucial miracle grow, BDNF. Consistency really is the key.
Second is cognitive stimulation. Your brain loves novelty. It thrives on complexity. This is all about breaking out of your routine. When you try to learn a new skill, say a new language or an instrument, you're forcing specific neurons to fire together, again and again. That's LTP in action. You're literally building and strengthening those circuits. Every new challenge, from visiting a new museum to just trying to navigate a new part of town without GPS, forces your brain to build new pathways.
And that third pathway is mindfulness. Practices that train your attention and your awareness, like meditation or even simple focused breathing exercises, have been shown to directly influence brain plasticity. They help reduce stress, and we know stress is a major inhibitor of neurogenesis, and they help you regulate your emotions, which feeds right back into that positive cycle of brain renewal and growth.
So what happens when we start weaving these three pathways together into our daily lives? Well, we get a really powerful and complete framework for building a much more sustainable brain.
It all comes together in this one framework. Just look at how those environmental inputs we just covered, physical activity, cognitive stimulation, mindfulness, they all feed directly into the molecular machinery of BDNF and neurogenesis. This creates what you'd call a virtuous cycle. Your positive actions lead to positive biological changes in your brain, which in turn makes it even easier to keep taking those positive actions. It's a beautiful feedback loop.
So if there's one thing to really take away from all this, it's this. Physical activity, cognitive stimulation, and mindfulness, they aren't just vague wellness ideas. As this shows, they are direct inputs. They all work through slightly different but complementary mechanisms to achieve the same goal, increasing your brain supply of that precious miracle grow, BDNF, which fuels the entire renewal process.
And that brings us back to where we started, but now with a totally new perspective. The science is crystal clear. You hold the tools. You have the power to be the architect of your own brain. So the only real question left is, what are you going to do today to start building?